Yeah.
So you heard about assets, you heard about energy day, now it's the one we had a solution. I just like, to only the time and place to share your views and tokenized still with assets all been, I'd say, described as linked to traditional finance and the blockchain world. And assets, for example, we had a point a little. We all know that the use case real estate is often like the one that comes to mind first. But what are some other use cases or applications that you think would be more suitable than
more suitable, very suitable, so always difficult. Also makes applicable. But I mean, the ones, the applications that you said here, the most are sort of gene economy, because we have this for related genes, transacting with each other, collaborating with each other, maybe building up some completely new economies from that understanding. I'm thinking also thinking about a lot of data and secular science, so all the kind of AI selection. Let's say that's really sort of very powerful and interesting proposition of sort of real assets tokenization. Also, you always sort of more intellectual property arena and what that could mean. For example, there's also again decentralized science, very interesting project. The molecule is storing years in the CMA, so and main reason that I find develop where you can see sort of depending on what kind of data comes into pharmaceutical asset and that can then sort of go up or down in value, then goes replaced by entities, for example. Those are very interesting again for entities. So I think these are just kind of use cases as exciting the most size of the kind of financial sort of verticals that they have.
what about there? So maybe you have anybody, if you have another take on any additional use cases you might use before we get to the big questions?
I can echo pretty much what Bastian said. I think in real world decentralization, probably is some sort of business inherent, right? Cash flow. And this tokenized obviously is more mutable than a given use is somewhere on chain. Yes, we land liquidity. You have something in the real world that your apartments and it has certain rents, you have giving one to invest that every time. Now if you multiply 100 apartments together with a million of co-investors and there's theoretically distributable but it's only liquidity you cannot trade, then it's nice that you can structure the product but it has no use yet. Right? So it's a bit of a chicken and egg. Right? It's still a market account. I think it will come, it's picking up. First of all, we have to get environmental use cases, and it's not us that have to be creative and find the right use case. Everyone should try to organize something and then we'll see what the killer application is.
Really just adatto ogni cosa in primera hai funzioni che possono risolvere quindi vai sì. And for some, we publish the sale of compensation for the individual. And so we look at all asset classes, we look at where we send today, the way we say to go. Now, this year we say tokenized volume to 0.6 trillion, 600 billion in tokenized assets. What is today the biggest asset class is actually 0 points. You see that happening classes. By 2033, we expect this number to grow to $19 trillion. 19 trillion. And data is going to be a secret. I also said that we're going to say that we, first of all, it would be mostly assets that would be tokenized first because of nice to get. And some of us have been working in that space, start maybe with certain equities or real estate and so on. But we actually see now institutional adoption happening in the actually mostly with as T-bills, you mentioned, stablecoins being a really big one. And now we should see the next phase where you have complex assets, where it's all about yields, it's all about also embedded functionalities around compliance, so sports are happening. So and there's a broad range. I think there's all experiments if you observe it in the area. I absolutely agree. Berthold said this imagine the lowest with I think 4 years ago. If you like I say the same point, you know, in this big way. Some also have, but it's not like the beginning.
I didn't encounter it being same place to do all this actually in sense. Thank you, BCG.
Because hit on topic, was seeing what was to really different discussion. So
thank you for the detail. This is very good overview. Just definitely something we got on. Yeah, so we'll do for a minute. Having from the other segment, the main capital side, the investor side, what do you think is the role of an investor like yourself in developing or operating the engagement with assets? And what are some opportunities or also strengths when you think about it as a free platform?
We're not building it. We're just accelerating. Best. We're investors and there's founders. Clearly, I think what's interesting is the deal flow in crypto winter and in ice systems, right? Is pretty much the same. We just have less noise to do that, right? So there's more rebuild, more serious project maybe. And we learn a lot. Now we are more on the big side, but as we were saying, on the beginning side, in the early stages, right, of the protocols. Nevertheless, we have one example, 1 month of the company where we had that's very early. How to find this team, I don't think not team, was well actually originating from Swift US company. It's one of the fastest three companies out there in the market. And really probably the fastest growing application at the moment. And we'll name it's a decentralized AI agent data collector, pretty much. Quite difficult to explain. It's a data play, and they have actually 5 million users now, growing totally based just 12 months on the market. And those are very good experience. What I'm trying to say is, for us as investors, when we started with that, we had a different proposition, and we pivoted it twice within these 12 months, right? Because the market is developing so fast. Our job is to stay calm and trust into, great founders, the good condition on the market, and see what our follow and next investors are doing. It's a bit of, I would say, educated research investment and that's framework, to be very honest. I don't know how you see that.
If you're asking about due diligence manager, we'll be speaking about the fund for anyone who's interested in that. It is for us, and also founders being a huge part of that, because also seeing how they interact with people, so also the people, how much will they also for criticism. Is something that's very important for us to see how resilient they actually are. Technology is another one, so I need to say we're shifting much more towards sort of the business model side of it. Because this technology is really important, and we have strong due diligence processes, and everything that we have to know with technology background is really very well thought through, feasible, and also just conclusion looking, because that has also a bunch of improvement, unfortunately. And if really now time to what is the business model, what is the go-to-market strategy, do you believe that this actually can generate return in the next 3, 4, 5 years? And then it's if it is sort of not just an equity play, but really a token play, really need to go after about the token design. So what is the utility of this token? Should it really be there in the first place? Do we really need it? I think people always forget that actually tokens aren't financial assets, they're a top of the blockchain. But it does mean that just because you have the blockchain, you definitely need a token. So one can go about the other. And as very important listening to see that it's more of it than just governance and these activities, because we have seen in the past that this will not really sort of lead to sustainable micro mechanisms, sort of really sort of being reflected in the press.
Also, we mentioned we to swap over in finance has been over in tokenized financial instruments. What do you feel are your biggest lessons in that space, and what do you think is sort of the practice actually?
I know the world and for dealing token with institutional assets, so securities since 2017, 18, fully partner regulated. So we have been in the space since beginning. And since then we learned a lot at the beginning. Tech was always the center of attention. But now we've learned tech to become commodity, because there's no difference between token as a real estate asset, a loan for any security. It's all the same tech minded. But the information is not in the center of attention. For the last couple of years, we've always followed other companies who have not been regulated, who have fought the regulations not needed to organize asset because it's just a token, although the token is security. So now, regulation is at the center of attention, where we also see the most value generated. I think this will change most of the last years. Market is part of it, but since market is not great, people understand that method was always there. And it's well tokenized securities have also been regulated, and this is something people start now to understand. And therefore also it's easier for investors to understand the actual product and start investing into it, because they have the confidence that they actually have to regulate the product.
May I ask you a question? Just because I think it's very interesting. As far as I know, you have tokenized a money market fund that they can have to some sort of exchange layer for securities 21x. Can you explain that a bit? Why is that needed? What is the reason?
So 21x, something I know that refers ENT as solid liquidity membership from the European Union. So it allows to operate an exchange similar to an ETF, but only for digital assets. And this background, we issued first tokens under this new regulation on this exchange. Why is this needed? Money market funds are also leading of markets. So also the market 21x. Use the tradable email on funds if you want to switch out of your actual trading into a different product. Because this money market as well as the street product project can also switch out. And second, I approve the argument with this money market funds and treasuries. Treasuries want to invest in risk-free assets, but they don't want to now token assets. So they are the token as money market funds similar to the regular fund and company makes sense. So now we have an exchange trade of products and exchange it money market funds just an execution from our perspective.
Thank you for that further explanation. As a key consultant, as you all look at RWAs from different perspectives, what do you think are established financial institutions responding to RWAs?
Yeah, so what makes my life difficult is my services are very ranges. But it means that naturally I only in projects where there is a very big return on investment for my clients. But it's good because it's a bit of a sobering filter because I get work on actual real use cases and not just take small ones. I think what we observe now is that the type of work we do has really gone away from the organization. I think the experiments that big players have found, I think now the projects we do are really about work with the big banks, the big infrastructure players. It's about scaling. It's about scaling, and for, let's say, the crypto native players, for the on-chains, for the infrastructure players, it's about growth. So I think that is really now the central attention to say, how can you no longer have like a sandbox approach or a client level? How do I migrate actual different volumes of, for example, cross-border transactions on blockchain infrastructure? How do I really tokenize big amounts of of lines at scale and credits out of it. And how do I actually change my core systems through having, for example, say, quite structure or on tokenized assets in a
Yes, as from the investing side, do you agree with Timo's approach or with his thoughts on that?
Yeah. Maybe because I don't know the just yes, 100%. BCG is expensive, but they're smart. I mean, what else can I say? But looking here in the room, right? For example, looking at my LGD, great man, just that day we had a talk with a speaker that people here related today from the Swiss. We were discussing some aspects around real world assets or any other than tokenized products, if you want, for rehabilitation. And that's, we need to have an ecosystem evolving, right, all together. So now we have a regulation, right, that's beautiful. Now we have the instruments that are starting to be complex. But then we have, for example, regulate and soil in that space. They don't find it back to bank with it. We have a critical fund in 2022, and no bank in Australia doesn't make it. I have a bank challenge, right? Because no Australian bank is banking, even though we're regulated. Then we have data services, data providers, etc., right? They have to comply with traditional regulations, yet they are in a new world, right? So we can speak about that in instance. What I'm trying to say is you can picture yourself sort of the landscape with many different stakeholders you need, right? In this market to function and to be effective. And only if everybody picks up on the topic of tokenized assets, right, or the future blockchain, but if we really want to call it, only if everybody evolves, right, the market will function. And we have a little bit of like one way is set, the other ones are still waiting, right? There's a little bit of a chicken and egg always is everywhere. And I think this is the reason why it's a little bit still something moving forward. With additional thought to that.
Definitely, I think it's very important. David, maybe also ask, maybe you want to ask them to do that.
Yeah, I have the same experience about us. There's a lot of blooming space, there's a lot of building space, but at the same time, there's always one to piece the system. Because it's a kind of mass, custodians, the custodians hold your licenses, so the technology said the licenses hold your license, but they don't have licenses for securities. At the same time, you have traditional custodians who are allowed to hold securities, but they're not able to hold tokenized securities. So you have also actually a new market, the old market, which makes it hard for people to actually access it. Because investors want it for the custodians. So therefore there's a demand for it, which is slowly developing. But it makes it hard for us as a platform, outside platforms, to grow to some extent if those players in the same space.
Yeah, I think it's also something that we also quite calculated for investing, because there is some that's just the middle of being just out early. If you want to maybe happen following the history of Ethereum and your first ecosystem projects that are one of the first projects that actually built was onboard was also a big shock. It was way too early if it's not going to be 10 years back, right? Today, we call it market and virtually everyone is using it, everyone is taking sort of information from it, today, how good elections going and stuff like that. And great site platforms like Manta, was been actually years ahead of their time, and really several articles today where it's getting a little bit easier, but still perfect happening, yeah.
So maybe to think that although what are some things or some issues that really need to be fixed in order to get to the next is really be connected, and it'll play on the policy. If we were to be able to take one regulatory issue that's there at the moment, what would we take?
Then it's to be decision. How do you convince the big players and governments to play ball with us in this?
Yeah, but I don't maybe want to just, it's always easy to say, always all work together, there's all things don't work together. But I think on the positive side, Vienna somehow starting out or you how to, And we're seeing again actually a couple of weeks ago in also crypto event in the DC office, we're all kind of invited next time. And to discuss mindset, right? So we chosen for obviously Coupon, right, and so on, and other players around Axis. And I think actually it's because one of the communities beyond the beautiful city and a great talent is also that the regulator is actually how safe further than many of the other regulators because they are
And then head of the market.
they are ahead of the market. They have been trained probably with, for example, being one of the early ones. So they go well-versed regulator, which is at the same time as the state. Right? And other regulators in Europe, some of them to some islands, that by no means are just the same. And I think there should be a couple of other pieces that are close together, but obviously go all the way. There's just simply innocent or that you can get properly land. You can try if you work in the tokenized.
This is exactly the point. Usually the regulator is behind. The market is usually super fast. If you look at horse race, right? The super fast lane horse, usually a market. Then there's this like old granny kind of moving horse lagging behind. That's usually the regulator. For some reason, our regulator has become a racehorse doing everything, and everybody is like chilling a little bit behind. It's like, why the hell are they running? Right? I think we need to encourage the large banks, the insurances, the corporates, everybody in that market, right? Encourage to jump on that trade. Also encourage everyone next to you to come to Vienna Blockchain because we are the European headquarter for crypto at the moment. 5 out of the top 10 exchanges are in Vienna. They have either regularized or have applied, right? So there's a lot happening. Will be a lot of employees also coming to the city. So there will be more momentum. But we need to use that. It's on us to create that market. And if you want to learn from the office how to speak about crypto money, ask Eve, please raise your hands. Yeah, Bitcoin Swiss started crypto money in Switzerland. Ask them. It's about big initiatives and just getting the ball rolling, right? And the more people believe, the bigger the brand gets, and suddenly you have Silicon Valley and Crypto Valley. You would have found that thing, but
Thank you, that's definitely very pertinent. I think that we see one of the players and really key factors that we still need to bring those two sides together because we have the knowledge, we have the use cases, we have everything out there that it goes through. Also, kind of part is on the top, but there must be something that's always promoted that we also review.
I think a big part is communication. So it's a relatively technology, a lot of use cases. Some of it is already quietly implemented, right? So we also got really little for example, saving, doing breakthrough for allows the users. And again, we also really flagship sort of company for international so the integration as well. So I think one of the streams communication setting will be sort of interface that actually trust what crypto is. Because traditionally it is sort of every year around it was there are hacks which by the ground were pretty common. Most hacks were actually sort of really damaged with all sort of user password kind of issues, right? And then we heard that a lot of scams. Well, we have a lot of scams in the traditional world as well, because probably even done this, the monitor will just say around in the creative as well. But I think there's the communication kind of thing. They also said, okay, the return to this is it's not just the fund, it's also not just the right. So there are many more other things out there that also can provide reviews for users. And also sort of through sort of any kind of sort of information that they would also be sort of doing everything.
I would like to add, I think the market is still very powerful, so especially if you go to regulated space, people really don't understand powers, even if you want to regulated security. So then, it's not exercise, because many people don't have powers, so this is experimentation. You don't have custodians at all, and you have securities, but I want to do it on the market. But and only if you want to invest in the product, you can just go to the bank, and purchase it. That's super easy. So the market still needs some time, but it becomes easy and seamless for investors to purchase products, to deal with that, and to manage that. And at the same time, that a lot of small players become bigger and bigger, and there are big players like J Marks as well and others are actually also in this space. But what they will say is this because I know there's in past there are some initiatives, but at the same time they're falling down right in the sleep base coming out of the sandbox phase doing some together. The small players have rather with us 8, 9% out, and it also goes, but the mid segment which actually and reaching the customer does not know what to do. They just decide payment community.
Yeah, and I fully agree, or what I found as well from the digital finance side is, everybody knows before, those people still think, crypto is this one thing called Bitcoin, and if I don't even know why, when I buy it, I lose it. So one of the things we're going to say about this communication is simplicity, access, simplicity, enabling it, and actually knowing what can I do with it. Because something I still see a lot of everyone, but what can I do with it? Just hold it in one, then somehow it will be worth more. It's very difficult for people to understand if they're outside of the space, that it's going to be in the region at all. Face and create communication. The meeting people, so there's a also the implementation, the faces it further. What are your experiences on that, and maybe solution of how we can do that or change that?
Yeah, so education is still in the meeting. Yeah. Every single new crypto project I sell or you sell, can show how it compliance. So I always ask when you today say no, it's not related to the same or not the same crypto, or it is the same. And I would say only a year ago, and there was something of a radical move in DCG that were doing the digital assets like this and very free. Now this is changed. Now the big senior players across the world, they are some of becoming the experts. Together with us, obviously, that's still think that we're working all together. But because it's really changed the environment now. And I see we see the same happening when we talk to banks, we talk to corporates. There's still skeptics out there, but it will always happen. But I think the discussions that are pushed now much more away from, why should I order to have? And how can I play? What is my role? How do I say it? How do I work in a kind of verify, DeFi, which is essential? And for me, it's very early. I still think we're very early. All those numbers in the answer registration services are not even anything. The 1% threshold is not nice share. So you can imagine what is similar ahead of us.
Just to your short thoughts, I think the easiest to use wallet when you don't know that you're actually doing something on chain will be up. I'm not sure if it's some account that having a genius idea and selling it immediately to beta or something else.
Dropping some intel right now?
No, it's very funny. If you log in the VCs, everybody is certain that the wallet play is something you should not invest in because it likely comes from the wallet of the really tech giants because they already have the planet as their user base, right? So if you develop something in that space, the only route to success is to immediately flip it and sell it to one of the communities and sell it, right? Like maybe I would do that, right? So this is why I'm always the things since everybody is waiting on things is not a habit, right? That's also a really tricky here. And the second component that kind of goes with that, right? Because we don't have it as easy to use, right? And launching with all service. We have a lot of experts that kind of eat themselves in, which makes it always smart. It's still a bit of a holding moment, right? We have again so many experts, right? Like in viruses, I'm not a crypto expert. I have hired smart people that know a lot about that, right? But I can tell you there is so much to know about this. Even the guys who do nothing but crypto all day long, even they say, I understand.
Yeah. We is a long time just yes, 100%. BCG is expensive because it's smart. What else can I say? But looking here in the room, right? For example, with LGD, great bank. Just yesterday we had a talk with a speaker that we will be related today in the Bitcoin space. We will discuss some aspects around real world assets or any other like tokenized products if you want or application. And that's we need to have an ecosystem evolving, right? All together. So now we have a regulation, right? That's pretty cool. Now we have the next instruments that are starting to be tokenized. But then you have, for example, regulating entities working in that space. They don't find a bank to bank with them. We have a crypto fund since 2022, and no bank in Austria gives us a bank account. I had a bank account in Liechtenstein, right? Because no Austrian bank is banked me, even though we're regulated. Then we have data services, data providers, etc., right? They have to comply with traditional regulations, yet they are in a new world, right? So we will speak about that in the pieces. What I'm trying to say is you can picture yourself sort of a landscape with many different stakeholders you need, right? In this market to function, to be effective, and only if everybody picks up on the topic of tokenized assets, right, or the future blockchain Web3, however you want to call it, only if everybody evolves, right, the market will be functioning. And we have a little bit of like one makes a step, the other ones are still waiting, right? So it's a little bit of a chicken and egg, always and everywhere. And I think this is the reason why it's a little bit still something moving forward. Maybe there's additional thought to that.
Definitely, it's very important thing. Maybe also ask maybe you want to add something to that.
Yeah, I have the same experience as well. There's a lot of moving in space, there's a lot of people living in space, but at the same time, there's always one piece missing. Because it's the kind of vast facilities. They have facilities for the cryptos, so the technology is there. They apply this into cryptos, but they don't apply this into securities. At the same time, the traditional facilities who allow to hold securities, but they're not able to hold token securities. So you have always a gap between the new market and the old market, between the utility or the people that actually invest, doesn't invest stronger the custodians. So therefore there's a demand for it, which is slowly developing, but it makes it hard for us as a bank and also other platforms to grow to a certain extent if those players exist in space.
Yeah, I think it's also something that we also quite carefully look at for investing, because there is some possibility of being just much too early. If you, for the ones who may have been following the history of Ethereum and first ecosystem projects that are one of the first projects that actually built was also the prediction market, but way too early at this time. It's going 10 years ahead, right? Today, because all of our credits and merchant, everyone is using it, everyone is taking sort of information from it, along with electric storage and all that. And great expected by almost like a management, also been in actually years ahead of the environment, really stuck around until today where it's getting a little bit easier, but still, still very excited. Yeah.
So maybe to claim that Parliament were some things or some issues that really need to be fixed in order to get it to the next level and really be connected, and a little play on your thoughts. If you were to change one regulatory issue that is there at the moment, what would you change?
Let me please to BCG. How do you convince the big players and governments to play ball with us within us?
Yeah, we do. But I just also say because it's always easy to say what is not working yet. There's a lot of things not working yet. But I think on the positive side, Vienna somehow is starting to become half or the capital in Europe. And we're sitting together actually a couple of weeks back in also a crypto event in the BCC office. So you're all kind of invited next time. And we discussed why is Vienna being chosen for investing in Bitcoin market and so on, and other players in the wider ecosystem. And I think actually it's because one of the key reasons beyond Vienna being a beautiful city and a great talent is also that the regulator is actually half a step further than many of the other European regulators because they are
And they're ahead of the market.
They are ahead of the market. They have been trained probably with, for example, Finland being one of the early ones. So you have a well-versed regulator, which at the same time is well with Spain, right? You have other regulators in Europe, sometimes also sunny islands, that might not be as well with Spain. And I think there is a couple of puzzles that come close together. But obviously, it needs to go all the way. It's just simply innocent that well, you cannot get it totally banked. You can try if you need to work in this.
This is exactly the point. Usually, when you enter the the market is usually super fast. Like if you think of a horse race, right? The super fast flying horse is usually the market. And then there's this like old granny kind of moving horse lagging behind. That's usually the regulator. For some reason, our regulator has become a racehorse winning everything, and everybody is like chilling a little bit behind. It's like, why are they not running? Right? Yeah. I think we need to encourage the large banks, the insurances, the corporates, everybody in that market, right? Encourage to jump on that train. Also encourage everyone next year to come to Vienna Blockchain because we are the European headquarter for crypto at the moment. 5 out of the top 10 exchanges are in Vienna. They have either already a license or have applied, right? So there's a lot happening. There will be a lot of employees also coming into the city. So there will be more momentum. But we need to use that, and it's on us to create that market. And if you want to learn from the old days how this was kicked off with Crypto Valley, ask Eve, please raise your hand. Yeah, Bitcoin Swiss started Crypto Valley in Switzerland. Ask them. It's about little initiatives and just getting the ball rolling, right? And the more people believe, the bigger the brand gets, and suddenly you had Silicon Valley and Crypto Valley. Who would have thought of that? Thank you, buddy.
Thank you for your name. That's definitely like a good approach, and again, it definitely let us move on. Like, what are your really like key factors that we still need to bring those two sides together? Because we have the knowledge, we have the use cases, we have everything out there. It shows proof with Austrian content project and so on and so on. But there must be something that is still missing. And what could that be? What's coming in?
I think a big part of this is communication. So it's, as I say, we've got the technology, got the use cases, and some of it is already being quietly implemented, right? So when you just heard about relevant for example, they've been doing great work for the last years, really. Again, being also sort of really flagship sort of company for international sort of integrations as well. So I think one of it is really communication, getting more people sort of into this space that actually trust what crypto is. Because traditionally, sort of everything getting learned around crypto was there are hacks, which by the way are not aware of pretty common, but most hacks were actually sort of really down to normal sort of user password kind of issues, right? Then we heard that there's a lot of scams. Well, you get a lot of scams in the traditional world as well. Just probably even just only 100 level, just the same amount as again as well. But I think it's just a communication kind of thing that we also said, okay, here is true, it is because it's not just Bitcoin, it's also not just right. So there are many more other tokens out there that also can provide use for users. And also sort of any firm sort of any kind of sort of information they will also be sort of doing every day.
I don't know to add to that. I think the market is still very large there. So especially if you go to regulated space, people really don't understand all the rest. Even if you want to the regulated security token, it's hard to access because many people don't have a model. So this is in fact the issue. You don't actually at the moment, okay, you will tokenized securities, but a lot of on the market. Furthermore, and then only you want to invest probably in just go to bank at first. That's too easy. So in the market still needs some time so it becomes easy to see those investors to purchase products, deal with them and manage them. And at the same time, there are a lot of small players become a big idea and then there are big players like JD Morgan, the world and others. But actually also living in space. But it didn't say it means because I know biologists and other science, they have some initiatives, but at the same time they're more than my living. Because the big players are coming out of the sand by the space, and then putting them together. The small players have learned over the last 8, 9 years by now and can also, but the middle segment, which is actually really to reach the customer, does not know what to do. Tailorship is my opinion.
Yeah, I definitely agree, or definitely on the right. What I found as well from the traditional finance side is, everybody knows crypto, and most people still think, oh, crypto is this one thing called Bitcoin, and if I buy it, I haven't been where to buy it. If when I buy it, I'll lose it. So I believe one of the biggest approaches to everybody to sum it up, maybe agent, is simplicity to access, simplicity to handle it, and actually knowing what can I do with it. Because something I still see a lot of people doing with it. What can I do? It's going to just hold it in my wallet, and then somehow we were more like, it's very difficult for people to understand if they're outside of their space. And I think that is definitely an issue that we all face and everyday communication. And meeting people, so that's definitely also some of the stage and we face it a step further. What are your experiences on that, the solution on how we can do that or change that?
Yeah, so education is similar. Yeah, every single new crypto project that I sell or we sell gets shot down by local clients. So I always have to educate, say no, it's not. Nobody is the same. What is the same with crypto, and crypto is the same. And I would say only a year ago, there was more. We were still being on a rebel group in the ECG that were doing the classes, therapies, and the Web3. Now this has changed. Now the biggest team partners across the world, they are suddenly becoming the experts together with us. Obviously, that's the thing. We're working all together. But this has really changed the market. And that is, we see the same happening with all banks, we talk to corporates. There's still skeptics out there, but it will always happen. But I think the discussions have moved now much more away from, why should I order, to how. Like, how can I play? What is my role? How do I scale? How do I work in a kind of TradFi, DeFi, and a video section? And for me, it's very hard. I still think you're very early. I mean, all those numbers in the numbers were strategy services for not even having to take the 1% threshold tokenized share. So you can imagine what was still ahead of us.
Just two very short fellows. I think the easiest reduced wallet where you don't know that you're actually doing something on chain will come. I'm not sure if it's some founder having a genius idea and selling it immediately to Meta or someone else.
Are you dropping some detail right now?
No, it's very funny when you talk with VCs. Everybody is certain that the wallet play is something you should not invest in because it likely comes from one of the really big tech giants because they already have the planet as a user case, right? So if you develop something in that space, the only route to success is to immediately flip and sell it to one of the magnificent seven, right? Like Meta or whatever, right? So this is quite obvious. The thing is, since everybody is waiting, nothing is kind of happening, right? So there's also a bit tricky here. And the second component that kind of goes to that, right? And because we don't have it as easy to use, right? Blockchain below the surface. We have a lot of experts that kind of keep themselves in, which makes me always smile. It's a bit of a COVID moment, right? And we have again so many experts, right? Like in viruses, you have that on crypto. I'm not a crypto expert. I have hired smart people that know a lot about that, right? But I can tell you there is so much to know about this. Even the guys who do nothing but crypto all day long, even they say, I understand a fraction, right? So to be very honest, right? There is a lot and we cannot capture it. So saying you're an expert in crypto, I think is very dangerous. And last of all this, all of that playing together is there is limited liquidity because with a lot of noise, right? The same amount of money goes on more and more and more token, which basically means if you don't have a concentration on certain big big roller coast, right? We will never reach a certain significance, therefore certain liquidity, and therefore the market will not pick up. So my theory would be that we will see a narrow space, right? And somebody will win it. Right now we have a million of layer ones, or I don't know, like a lot of layer ones, right, that are trying to compete. But look in our world with our laptops, right? We have an OS for Mac, you have Microsoft Windows, and not much more. Linux, etc. for geeks, right? But that's it. So how many operating systems do we have?
On the wallet form, we can help you write the wallet. So it's one of the actually best wallets out there that's taking now further by storm. Now it has a really easy
Right, yeah.
right RYDER. It's actually you're really building a team building it. It's really great. So have a look at that one. Really super simple to use with your phone and with a really cover bag and everything. So it's really great. And I think on what do we need in this space is, well, first of all, as I said a little bit before, right? I think we need to go also beyond crypto, we can speak as purely assets that you invest in. Because at the end, it will allow to be large liquid funds that actually hold part of the total economic shares that is right? So I think we need to also get into people's minds that this is actually sort of a kind of currency if you want to call it that way, that is where you can transact everyday benefits for it. So we have maybe one token that you use for an energy fund to pay your bills and that. We might have another token that sort of goes a lot for also you can do some other things that also set up a maybe I think already that the data that it provides, right? Again, then you have the healthcare data, that is sort of maybe in a platform where you allow you to share for research or training or whatever, right? You can incentivize that you can get spend for other things, right? So I think if we look at really this as non-economic systems, and you would get that also to the minds of people that sort of this is not something new, right? I mean, people know loyalty cards, get points, where they get a discount and or I don't know what else, right? This is sort of gamification maybe for it, right? To just want to take it just as and those and it's just sort of the same kind of thing, right? But I think the principle is already out there. Just people need to understand that this is a way how they can use tokens on different kind of levels and NFTs. Also new ones to that aspect. I'm not a fan of that, but I think there will come some to the women as well. And I think again, communication, if we get that right, then I think with the status that we have critical cards and stuff like that, we can get a long way in that.
And then we're going to use, they also going to have some medical characters as well as the simplicity of our image, people not knowing that they're actually using it. Doing it in a way where you really talked about earlier, paying your amount, as you say, also your digital behavior for the automobile, any tokens, whatever, so that people all use it, we get the feedbacks, the gamification aspect of it, for you to be incentivized to use for everyday uses, but you don't actually know that when we Google something or when we use the internet or when we Facebook or we Telegram or WhatsApp, it's so normal, we don't even know versus the back, we don't need to understand it, and I think that's how crypto eventually commoditization will probably also go down over the next years. Yeah, let's stick it to the next few years. And let's go a little bit about into the future. Do you guys think or see real-world assets be mainstream or becoming mainstream or everyone to use it, everybody wanting to use it, or do you think it's stay a little bit more global in a way?
I think in the long run, the definitely become mainstream, but without really knowing it. So ideally, you use the technology, but you as investor, you as a bunch, so trade whatsoever, you don't even know that it's the technology. Because also today, you don't care how advanced this works for your banks as long as it works in risk conditions. So ideally, you're using it, you gain profit because the market conversion fees are lower, it's faster, it's consistent, no one can trust it more. But at the same time, you shouldn't think about which chain and which technology you're using. You shouldn't just here. It's the fraud evidence, the service tool, and whatever technology is behind will work. So this is where the market needs to develop too.
If you think about verticals, I think energy will be first, followed by again centralized science and probably space tech, because it's also one of those two which is really interesting. I think energy, you have heard this before, and if you take the time to follow the social media accounts of Jürgen and also follow this in that aspect, you will actually quickly find out that they have actually integrated with IKEA with the digital hub, right? It should also be sort of functional to have a suite that you will be able to actually buy points to that, you can optimize your energy usage, and I think that's also a route to sort of bring global adoption again. So I think that is really a segment that we will see that it's a lot of it happening because it also helps people with their current needs, right? So we should not sort of be ignorant that people are struggling right now with paying for their bills, right, and for several aspects in their life. So I think providing here for a service or an interface that actually rapidly also sort of those bills to help in everyday life is something that people are actually interested in working with. So this is why I think energy will be sort of the first piece for people to go, science to go, health, it's something also a big topic. There's a lot going on now, so in nutritional sciences, supplements, stuff like that. People want to be our biggest gap, they want to avoid the vehicles, they strong in hospitals. You don't have good access to healthcare in Austria, for example. Recently, it was also published that they need to develop more ENT clinics for children because it's already actually for the most minute operations, we need 18 to 24 months. Right, so that is actually really crazy to do what we've done here. And again, so this is why I think those two topics next to them, space tech, which is sort of a topic that will be also interesting from several aspects, will really sort of be pushed for also mass adoption forward really.
100%. The mass adoption is actually quite funny. You guys, every day you get bills in Austria, right? There's a QR code on it. Who knew that this QR code runs on blockchain? One. The funny thing is, this is the most mass adopted use case on chain in Austria, and nobody knows. There's one very good and significant interest point why this is the case. Because the financial ministry doesn't want the restaurants to fraud, right? Or the retailers to fraud on tax, right? So this big pain point and the painkiller is, in that sense, the internet of ownership, the internet of control, whatever you want to call it. But the way blockchain is used here is to cash in on your taxes, right? And maybe we're thinking when we're thinking about the problems in the wrong direction. And we could be surprised that it's a totally different use case that just comes seamlessly into our lives, but we have no idea that it's actually.
Yeah, I really like that one. What is also interesting, I think, what's happening on a big scale is identity. And you are probably aware that AI is soon to pass into law, and next year all European member states have to issue their identity also in a decentralized way to their citizens. And in 2027, large commercial players, platforms, have to accept those identity. And that's, I think, going to be another push, because once you have that, you have mandated adoption. And then a lot of the already existing Web3 use cases, they can very seamlessly plug in into that use.
We had this use case with a company called Foods Analytics. They worked on a project with Ripple for KYC on the chain. Swift is just simply telling which number goes from one to another bank, and Swift basically just running through a telephone cable. Now, if you have a transfer with KYC on chain or with some contractual dependencies, right, going there, you actually have a much better control in the sense of anti-terrorism financing, etc. Right? There's a lot of those security use cases that make a lot of sense that could speed up the market again without having the downside of less regulation.
So we keep the the question for you in the investing part. What have been some of the most interesting projects that you all have invested in that either was mattering they have actually succeeded or failed along the way? What are some use cases that you thought were really interesting in your experience?
I would say there's this story links to where the scene changed in the collaboration with Ripple, where we were not in blockchain space, but they were dealing with Ripple, and it was incredibly interesting to learn how far ahead Ripple is thinking, while the US SEC was still discussing, is this even possible what they're doing? Is this a security or should we forbid it or whatever, right? So this was years ago, right? I hope now, and I think now they have found out that they are okay. Second use case we did quite early because we didn't want to be too early in the market. It was, we thought, like the bill that I showed you, one thing is certain, people with crypto will have to pay taxes. So we invested in a tax and compliance software company called Lockbit, where we are the largest capital. That is a beautiful case because there is CACA coming, there's CARF coming, so on European and on OECD level, there's regulations coming that basically mean you will get letters from the financial ministry and they will make you pay taxes, right? For us, that's great because it drives demand from our software on the private clients, on the corporate clients, and on the government clients. And the third use case, that's the most critical use case, is daily. And that, I'm very honest, it's very early stage investment with Eneo. I talked with Astrid when we looked at it. She said that she was in the past, she had a lot of regional reasons why. I got kind of tipped into that because the company when Teneo evolved out of wasn't insolvent. So it was a pure likely from a racial point of view, we would have never done this investment. And it's just stunning where they have developed to, and I would have never thought that that's possible, but that happened. And sometimes I think it's the luck that you get when you just don't stop doing. Or
Okay, no one has anything to add, but it would have been very interesting to see and to allow people to okay, some of the failures have to keep going, and you never know what comes along the way. Use case or solution you might have really or a problem that you've been encountered in the past. And maybe sticking to investing in those right here. I mean, there's always been, investing in cases or things that have almost been closed off to retail investors. Do you need tokenization or maybe but of course everybody's welcome to answer that. Do you think that will change or and it will open up certain classes, asset classes to retail investors?
I feel like it's starting that but it's some of the fundamental promises of tokenization, right? That you make illiquid asset classes liquid. I think many of the things you have on the Manta is also around that to say make real estate or expenses. We did a project for tokenized cargo ships. The actual cargo ship gets tokenized, gets access. We've seen different projects in all kinds of ways. In the end, as I said, it's negotiation. You need liquidity. How much time you need to actually amount. And so there you have that sweet spot, and I liked it with what Jürgen said. So he said also the sweet spot. If you have very large kind of supply and large investors, you might not need tokenization because they just have a managing mechanism directly. It's too small, you never get into volumes than you need. So it's like kind of these sweet spots. I think as a lead investor, I haven't seen huge traction in really saying to the same amount as you currently invest or invest now some of the very liquid assets. I think it's more a bit of an emerging thing. But very often there are these tipping points. At some point it can simply more attractive from a yield perspective, from a C perspective, potentially some time down the line, from a tax perspective, to hold the tokenized version of an asset versus a non-tokenized one. And that's when you see an asset on a company. Oftentimes, people might not even know that. But I like, for example, about the big on the Raiffeisen collaboration. Now you can argue it's so custodial and so on and so forth. But they started now with using e-commerce technologies solutions for crypto. But now they're adding also identities where you, for example, get fractional identities now as a benefit. That's something you can understand. Say, okay, I can never afford one single Tesla stock, but now I can invest maybe for 5 euros. And so I think these are some of the tipping points to adopt.
There is the biggest enemy of the trader or somebody selling software that sells, right? And there's one thing that is more beautiful in crypto than it is in classical equity, right? These is environments, right? If you swap from one digital asset to another one, there is no tax, right? Now, if you ask your bank, can I change my OMV stock against a bull stock? They say you need to sell and buy. And you sell, you have a profit, you pay tax. So you have less to reinvest. Why not swap that? We used to have that historically on institutional trading in equity, like swapping between stocks. Somehow this has vanished. It's not there in the market. Then the tax regulation allows us that this could be tax free, right? Now, if we have tokenized stocks, then we could actually switch between different stocks without generating a tax event. That would be actually beautiful, right? And it might be an incentive for the banks, right, to cash a bit more on fees and give their clients a bit more money because they're not needing to share with the administrator.
Yeah, the person maybe I don't know that some you have to be careful with those who say like when you're swapping one asset with another because sometimes there is also saving points for those in the area where it will be nice. So it's something that users don't see in the front end, but it's happening in the back end. It's something happening and you're using sort of the old mail and sort of kind of things. That's sort of but I think for adulting and for real assets, the main part of the liquidity financial marketplace that is accepted by several people where you can actually trade your real estate. They have many platforms that has and the prices and fade, unfortunately. There are some caveats now that are interesting to watch, so we'll see how that will have. So most of them coming actually out of UAE at the moment. Whereas also very active in real estate market at the moment. But the current one never really makes this sort of set up before, sort of mass adoption usage will come from those years where people will really see as and that not much where retail investing is something where a lot of people are passionate about the retail investment.
Maybe one thing that I could like this was supported now was in the end, it really matters young. Like many people, even if real estate is so nice, do not invest in real estate because they might not find it attractive. Yeah. Some of you know Institution and Mary, this started from SpaceX. You can actually buy SpaceX social with tokenized form. Yes, true shares like debt system and so on and so forth. But that excites people because you cannot invest spaces, not don't have special access. And I think that's a settlement really about the relevant. And I think the stars that you also have 70% of which also in this.
No, definitely. So this is something what we have seen over the last years that people care about the actual asset. If the technology, they understand that this is like that the technology is not connected to Bitcoin or currency, then they care about the actual asset. This is also how it should be, in my opinion. I would like to add a recognition of assets. This would be the ultimate goal, that any retail investor can purchase any type of asset on 1 year. Unfortunately, this is not possible. Why? Not because of the technology, but because of regulation. You cannot make private funds or venture funds that is easily accessible, unfortunately, because of regulation usually forbids it to you. And even if you would want to make that accessible, it's super expensive to get an prospectus, to get a group, and then also to list to retail investors. So I think there are many hurdles which do not come from the technology to actually really have fractionalized ownership in traditional securities.
We are trying this at the moment, right? To put our reserve fund on the stock exchange in this very funny levels. So first of all, the Austrian Stock Exchange and international market already agree, and in EIM that you have where you have issued shares, qualified investors. Yes, you can list those, even with fragments, right, on the stock exchange. So what originally used to be minimum signed by 100,000 only qualified investors, I can have that one ticket being €100 be listed on the stock exchange. But I need to find a bank that connects me to ÖKB, Austrian Control Bank, CSC system. Without a bank doing that, right, and functioning as a payment provider, Zahlstelle, right, transfer agent and information agent, which I literally don't need because the fund is running and I only have a liquidity event if I terminate the fund. There is no information because I'm not issuing additional shares. So there's nothing happening. You can cash from connecting it on a digital platform. Literally 5 lines of code, deal done. Right? And you'll get the money every year. The funny thing is, a regulated fund where everybody says yes, right, doesn't find a fate to connect you to BKB CSD. If you know someone, tell me. Yeah, we have a talk with everyone, and we just got the last bank to say no, and the original 3 weeks before said yes, right? But now they said, well, oh, right, says now this works just lightly, this touches Nika, and we just don't want to raise the question.
But I guess those the question I asked earlier, what one thing would you change if that might be the issues that you would change or have a solution for as it is last fall?
Yeah, maybe just also to add on that, I think what we sometimes forget in our Web3 goal or innovation is that digitalization in the real world is also not as far as we would like it to be. So we build a really sophisticated supercomputer tech, that has the potential to change everyone's life to the better. But then, if you think about tokenization of funds, this is also something that we looked at, but in the end also said, okay, it doesn't really make sense for us because the legal basis, sort of even if you sort of the token sort of changes hands or so, it's still the original owner, who is actually in the books. So you need to have signed contracts with that person and giving really the ownership. Right? So again, I think we need to see how we can also advance digitalization at large for all of these processes to really make sense as well.
Before we end up,
No, just want to maybe like a balance of look at one license to become a bank. Any helps?
Definitely an interesting thought. Before we head into lunch break, maybe, or I'd like to give you as the audience room for any questions that you might have to one of our panelists.
Thank you very much for this insightful discussion. I wanted to ask you something related then to blockchain and AI, specifically the relation between both and the linkages between these two technologies. I have been recently at the OECD headquarters in Paris, and my capacity as member of the OECD Youth Advisors Board. And in a series of meetings at the Directorate of Innovation and Emerging Technologies, we had a discussion with the head of the department. And the whole discussion was mainly focused on AI, but not on blockchain at all, I would say. And when it comes to blockchain, we see this perspective is all about taxation and regulation. But AI is useful for every other aspect of the real life of people. So I want to ask you, first of all, if you see that AI will complement blockchain or on a way to institutionalize both these emerging technologies. AI will take more space and blockchain will take away. And besides that, I want to ask you to ensure that blockchain, even though it's very useful in different aspects of the daily life of people, it's only related to illicit activities and still institutions that are going about high aggressivity, more than necessarily about. Thank you.
Maybe one of our sense, but then again, in class, maybe just to get you to keep on going about it. I think for me, the most interesting, there are many things in blockchain and AI. The most interesting one is, I think, crypto, banks, non-banks, AI. Yeah. So there was another one, I think, by Richard Silverman, that was saying that the currency of AI is crypto. I think that is a very interesting one because everything is automated and trustless. AI suddenly acts and pay for things, and that is something opening up a whole world where you can really have end-to-end automation because agents can actually transact. But can you actually share much more examples?
It's nice to example where you, Vitalik said 12 years ago, where I think in a very strong and powerful way, the best example why the blockchain and AI should be actually together. When this team was built, there was when the concept was floating around, the guys were sort of coding the whole thing. There was a very early workshop also held in the United States about sort of what Ethereum would be and where the risks be, and people were thinking at the time that Ethereum will sort of be this giant, right? So will be this autonomous smart contracts and will be a great threat to the world. And Vitalik was actually quite simply saying, well, actually, if we do it right, then the blockchain will be the one that will be saying strong in the future, right? Because you will have your set of rules that are in the blockchain that it cannot be changed if you don't have sort of a majority system like a proof of work or mistakes, whatever consensus you can take on it or governance model, right? So it shows that putting AI on a decentralized backbone, and a really decentralized backbone, not something that claims to be decentralized, right? Which we have a lot of those in Web3 and blockchain still. That this is actually the one that will be most powerful in protecting us some of the issues that will come with AI. So I feel that apart from all the examples that we have, autonomous vehicles and where AI will like any decentralized science, data, whatever that is, I think putting all of this on a decentralized grid is actually super important.
I have a different angle view on the same issue, and really coming to look at it from an outside perspective. When you look at AI, what most people forget is intelligence comes from trained data, right? So one of the key resources for something that you can train is good data. ChatGPT is new because it has old data. It doesn't crawl in real time all the time, right? But if you want to have something that feels like AI that helps you today, information from yesterday, you need to have real-time data. In order to provide that, you need to have nodes all around the world. This is what Teneo is doing, right? And you need to actually pay those users to provide this data in real time, because you cannot have an intermediary, because it simply not be fast enough. So the source data, I think we're rethinking, and this is reshaping, and here blockchain plays a role clearly. On the second side, on the training and on the inference, you have a massive shift at the moment. Just recently invested in the European company that's the world-leading company in photonic computing. We're talking about 10x faster compute than on CMOS architecture and 30x less energy consumption in version 1 of the chip. Next version coming in November, and it will have, again, quite a significant multiple, a faster chip. And we're producing on a 90 nanometer node, not 4. Okay, so this is early days, this is changing a thing. To put that in simple terms, why is it important into intelligence, like training data and connected inference? Mathematics that you can use today for any graphic cards, right? Where you blow a lot of energy through that. You can always use simple models because it has to be narrowed down to linear mathematics. Photonics, for the first time, allows you to natively compute nonlinear mathematics on the chip. This means you can actually go and have neural networks for Fourier transformations, equations, right? You can have those natively in a library. This is a significant change. So here you have another edge, right, to intelligence out of trained data that comes out. Now, since this is evolving on an infrastructure level, on a data provider level, on an algorithmic level, right, we have no idea what kind of use cases we will be able to solve tomorrow, right? Is it the blend with blockchain or something else? Likely everything or nothing. but it's a much more complex topic to look at.
Thank you, Already. It's a good question. And yeah, I'd like to thank all of you for being part of this panel. I hope you enjoyed all of your inputs. I definitely did. And I wish you all a great lunch break. And enjoy your conversations, enjoy the food, and we'll see you again back here at 1 o'clock. Thank you. One more thing, since it's after noon now, maybe one or the other will have a case of beer or maybe Red Bull. Please do not throw those cans in the regular trash cans. We collect them into the IKEA bags. Because in Austria, same as in Germany, you have to get money back when when you have to pay more money for them. So please don't throw them in the regular trash cans in the IKEA bags. They don't. Thank you. Enjoy.
Seated, standing.
Never like.
Philipp, wir haben hier einen Professional Fotografen.
Ja, ja.
Das war jetzt nicht so gemeint. Thank you so much. Now, Ella. So,